The anxiously attached person is essentially a love addict. They require the other person's validation so they don't have to feel their own incompleteness. Anxious attachment, at its core, is someone whose center isn't within them. The minute they feel like their partner or someone they're seeing isn't giving them the love they think they need, they immediately go to believing that the union is under threat. Anxiously attached people are constantly outsourcing their center. When you're truly at peace, you have your center. You don't need anything. You feel whole. That is the state that we're supposed to be in. The main issue I see with people who are anxiously attached is that they place all the blame on the avoidant. I'm this way because my partner's avoidant. They don't love me. They don't give me what I need. The truth is, it's on you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the New Age Sage podcast. In today's episode, we're going to follow a line of thinking that I've gotten many requests about, that almost everyone who's interested in love and relationships follows this ideology, which is anxious attachment, avoidant attachment styles. I'm going to explain what I believe about it, what I've been through, and what's true, what's not true, and how to overcome it. Psychologists believe that most couples find themselves in some level on the spectrum of anxious avoidant, where one person's anxiously attached or slightly anxiously attached, one person's avoidantly attached or slightly avoidantly attached, and then the goal is to both become secure. It's not as simple as that, because we're not really explaining what it takes for that to turn secure. The common ideas are that, it lies on the other person mostly, that they have to change. In reality, it's more complicated. So I'm actually going to begin and focus on anxious attachment, because I think that's at the root of all of these issues. I think it lies more on the person with anxious attachment to create a healthy relationship. So in my experience, I have anxious attachment, or I'd probably say I'm 85% secure, 15% anxious. It used to be 100% anxious, 0% secure in my past. But doing the inner work, I've gotten to a place where it's like this, and I'll explain how. So first off, let's really understand and unpack what anxious attachment really is. So anxious attachment, at its core, is someone whose center isn't within them. The minute they feel like their partner or someone they're seeing isn't giving them the love they think they need, they immediately go to believing that the union is under threat, that if their partner is withdrawing love, is upset, is angry, needs space is especially important here, they need space, then the person with anxious attachment breaks off in their center and needs the other person's validation, needs the other person's love, needs them to feel whole. So this could look like an anxiously attached person finally saying something they've been holding in, that what they perceive they need in their relationship. And they speak it from this place of fear and, I need this, right? And then the avoidant usually hears that and withdraws and is like, I need space to process this. And the anxiously attached person runs and runs and runs because they need that person's validation. Look, I've been a drug addict. I've been an addict to many things in life. And the anxiously attached person is essentially a love addict. They require the other person's validation like a drug, so they don't have to feel their own incompleteness, their own low self-worth, their own perceived lack, their own traumatic linguistical thought patterns that make them believe that they are not worthy of love. So it's like, if my partner or if the person I'm seeing gives me the love I think I need in this specific way, it's literally a drug that makes you then shift into love, into positive thoughts, into you believing you're whole. So their validation becomes a drug. So the anxiously attached person is really addicted to the validation of others to release the feeling of love. So what does this look like? Again, more classic examples. If you're anxiously attached, your partner isn't answering the phone for hours, and they love you, they're with you, they're probably busy, but then you immediately go into a panic state where you think that the connection's threatened, that they're not answering you because they're doing something, because they're with someone, because they're ignoring you, right? And then you sit there deeply uncomfortable and you're staring at your phone and you need their answer to feel whole. That's a drug. I can tell you when I was, sitting on my bed holding a bottle of pills, thinking like, oh, so uncomfortable, so intense. I needed that to squash the intensity. It's the same feeling here. So the anxiously attached person is really an addict who's using the validation and quote unquote love of the other person to feel whole. So you essentially end up using your partner as a way to feel whole because you can't feel it yourself. And energetically, your partner feels that. They feel that you're using them to build yourself up. So it's not love, you're using them, right? You're using them sexually, you're using them, their words, or you're using whatever. So it's like the anxiously attached person is really a user. They're a drug user, and their partner becomes an object of a drug that they require to fill themselves up with. So again, to map this out again, the anxiously attached person feels like the connection with their partner or the person they're seeing is threatened. And then they go into a state of panic, into intense anxiety and fear, and they perceive that they need the person's response, validation, love, nice words, hugs, sexuality. They need that to feel whole. That's the same pattern as a drug addict. I'm saying it because I've been there. I still am there sometimes, right? And at its core, what's happening there is that anxiously attached people are constantly outsourcing their center. So when you're meditating, when you're truly at peace, we all have that feeling. When you're truly at peace, what's going on? You have your center. And what does having your center mean? Having your center means you're conjoined or cohabitating, you're one with your higher self. And your higher self is the version of you that's complete, that doesn't need anything, that's whole. You felt that feeling when you're after a massage, just done a sauna or ice bath, or maybe you've taken a psychedelic, whatever it may be. You've had moments of intense clarity where you're one with yourself. You don't need anything. You feel whole. That is the state that we're supposed to be in, right? But what happens is the anxiously attached person splits from that state. Their center splits, and then they believe they need a reaction, words, love, physicality from validation from their partner, from the person they're seeing to fill that center. But that's an illusion because it never works, right? And I think maybe after 2 months of dating with my wife now, I really had to overcome this anxious attachment stuff in my marriage because it was costing us too much. And I'll explain more so why it's actually worse for the man to be in it. But she told me one thing that, because the anxiously attached person wants to essentially avoid having their center at all costs. They don't want to do the work it takes to actually feel whole because it's painful. It's a painful process to sit with our own wounding. And it's literally just a reflection of sitting with our pain that we center ourselves, right? You have to center yourself as an anxiously attached person. The minute you need them to center you, you're stuck in the game of push, pull, avoidant, whatever. You have to sit with yourself and fill yourself up. And that's a hard process because it involves sitting with the feelings you've tried to run away from your whole life. So, but then the anxiously attached person's ego is so intelligent that it convinces them that it's my partner's problem. They have to be the person for me. They have to do this. They have to do this. These are my needs. They have to act this way. They have to do this thing. And the list goes on for the anxiously attached person. It's never enough. It's never enough. And the avoidant person ends up feeling it's never enough because it is never enough. It's never enough because you can't use something else to fill you up. So, we had too many arguments with my wife in the beginning where I said, hey, I need you to change this. I need you to change that. Da, 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 da. It gets to a place where, you have to realize, I had to realize that this is a black hole. My wife told me, like, I can do this stuff for you. I can tell you all the nice things. I can grab you and do all these things, but you got to know that me doing this is never going to fill the hole in yourself that you need to fill. And it's only going to make it worse. So I love you, but it's like, would love be me constantly doing that for you? Or would it be me letting you do it for yourself? And that's real love, right? Is seeing your partner and saying like, I can't be your drug. I can't be your mother. I can't be your friend. I'm your partner. I'm your lover. I'm your wife or husband, whatever it may be. That's real love, because real love is the process of each party doing the inner work it takes to overcome what's not love, what's fear, what's attachment, what's stopping them from being in the highest vibration. And real love is when you understand that you can't do that for your partner and you can't take care of them. You can't fix them. What you can do is hold the mirror up and tell them, hey, you got to do this on your own. There's only so much I can do. You got to go here on your own. You got to take care of your own fear. And that's a difficult process, but it's the required process to find the highest vibration and the highest union. And that's what it takes for the anxiously attached person, is that they have to sit with themselves when their center goes off. And the center going off is a somatic feeling of an anxious terror feeling of they have to do XYZ so I can feel safe and whole. That is not going to work. It's just not. So to explain deeper, vibrationally, if I'm in the panic terror mode and I need my partner to douse me in, to shower me in love and affection and kisses, I need it so bad because I feel the connection is threatened. I'm texting them nonstop and calling them nonstop. You know when you're in that vibration of just constantly messaging, calling, and running after them, is that energy an attractor or a repellent? If I'm anxious and I need validation, I need love, and I'm running after it, what's that energy? It's like force. It's forceful, polarized neediness. And when you're with someone who loves you and they see that in you, that like terror, that need to consume, that need to for a drug, basically, is that a repellent or an attractor? It's a pusher. It's the energy of pushing, of force. You're trying to force them into loving you the way your ego needs, like a drug, to feel whole. That's a repellent. So in that energy, you're always going to push away your partner, and then that's what makes them, quote unquote, avoidant. So the trick is, in that pattern, to figure out and think of, when am I not in my center? When am I in the frequency of running and chasing and needing? And then my partner is then forced to run away because what is this, right? And then the partners of those who are anxiously attached end up they see you in your whole. They see you when you have your center. They see you when your center's locked in, and that version of you is real love. And they see that, and like, this person's awesome, this person's amazing, and then they do something slightly off, and you turn into an addict. You run after them, you sprint after them, you need them so bad. Then your partner is like, who is this? Right? This isn't love. What happened to you an hour ago? You were so centered, and it's like it's tough for the person seeing them to hold space for that. So now it comes into, how does one with anxious attachment actually overcome this? And the common sentiments are, do your inner child work, because it's a reflection of your abandonment wounds from childhood. I don't know if that framework is the most useful, because I know plenty of people who do inner child work and are aware of the inner child, but they stay stuck in the pattern of anxious attachment their whole life. So how do we actually move from the awareness that, with the fact that we did feel abandoned when we were a child, we did get betrayed, people are aware of this. So how do you move from that awareness to actually stopping the pattern? And the biggest thing I could tell you is just having a somatic awareness of when your center is broken. And when the center is broken is when you feel like you desperately, keyword desperately, need and require the other person to be overly affectionate to feel like they won't leave you. Right? It's this terror of, are they going to leave me? That center's whole, and you're in fear. The minute you're in fear and you're chasing their love, you're chasing a different expression from them, that's when you have to give yourself back your center. And each person has a different process. So, this just happened to me recently, where I can't remember what the tiff was about, but it was a tiff, and I lost my center, and I needed her to do something for me to feel whole again, and I was stuck in that matrix. So one thing I know that works for me to gain my center back is I have a sauna and a cold plunge in my house, and I did that for an hour, and I finished, and my center was so locked in. I looked at her and I was like, I looked at her. I said, "Hey, I was being a boy there. I wasn't a man. I didn't have my center. My job as your husband, as your man, as your leader, is to have my center in me. I apologize for losing it. I'm here now." And I looked at her with the center, and the issue melted away. That's what people who are loving someone with anxious attachment want from you, is to have your center, because you and your center is so radiantly powerful and beautiful. Your partner wants to see that from you. They want to see it from you, and they may not be the best at explaining that, but that's the truth, that they want to see you standing in your power. I promise, the minute you're standing in your power, it's okay. Right? So when the anxiously attached person runs after their lover with a need, like, I need it so bad, it's repellent. But I promise, if you have your center, you're in your heart, you don't need anything anymore, you're sitting there, you can actually have an accurate reflection of what's going on, right? And what you feel like is that you can't control your partner. You can't control them. When you're stuck in anxious attachment, you need to control them to satiate your fear. It's like, if you do X, I'll feel afraid, I'll feel like you'll leave me, so you can't do that. You have to do this. And so the anxiously attached person needs control constantly to feel whole. But control isn't love, is it? A bird in a cage isn't love. That bird's going to fly free. So when someone feels free, that's when they actually feel loved. Especially women. Women have to feel free to feel loved. So do men as well. Everyone wants to feel free to feel loved. Free love, baby. It's a real thing. But you also have to honor your preferences as a partner. So what I've learned is that when I'm in my center, when we're stuck in a hard decision where I don't want her to do something, my ego doesn't, and we've all been in that situation where your partner's gonna do something you don't want him to do, and you want to control it. And if you're anxiously attached, it goes into fear. You can't do this. You can't do this. That's never going to work. Do something that has your center in you, right? Leave the house, go for a walk, do this on a cold plunge, do breath work, go to yoga, go to the gym. Like, the last thing you want to do is to leave your partner and give him space and go do something, but you have to. If you're anxiously attached, you need to give your partner space. You need to give yourself you have to give yourself space to find your center again, and do whatever it takes to find your center. Go to the gym, breath work, Pilates. I don't know. Go talk to your friend. You find your center again. Your center is no fear. When you have your center, there's no need for control, because you're in your center. Like, I don't need anything. And then that's where a preference or desire can come through, right? Which is what I've experienced now. Which works is that I say in my center, it's usually like, hey, I have this preference, right? But you can do what you want. But just know that's my preference. If you're seeing a woman and she wants to go out with her friends, and she wants to come home at like 3 or 4 in the morning, right? And that's not something you like. You then, in your center as a man, you say, hey, I prefer it if you came home earlier. You can do what you want. I won't hold it against you. I won't be mad at you. But I prefer if you came home earlier. But, you have freedom to do what you want. And you have your center, you're locked in, there's no need. You're locked in. You say, I prefer that. I'd want you to come home earlier, but if you don't, you have free will. It's okay. That's a whole different ballgame, because then your partner can make a decision out of their own free will. So the trick in communication with your partner romantically is that you have to make them feel like they are choosing the decision out of their own free will. And you can't do that if you say, I need to do this or else. But when you're in fear, that's why you speak. You say, you need to do this so I can feel safe. But then your partner can make a decision out of free will. It's out of your coercion. So you have to phrase things in a way saying, hey, I prefer this for XYZ reasons. However, you can do what you want. It's okay. I love you. Right? That's a whole different experience. I for example, my partner actually does this very well. She's shown me this, right? I practice mixed martial arts, and my wife does not like it when I have sparring days. Sparring days is when I actually fight people. I get punched in the head, my nose bleeds, my head's a little out of it, I'm in a bad mood for a couple of days. There's good reason she doesn't like it, right? It's not good for me to go get punched in the face constantly, but I love it. I love doing it. It's a way for me to connect with the warrior archetype and really feel and release my anger. And what she tells me is that constantly, I don't like it when you fight. I don't like it when you come home and your head's all banged up. I don't like it. But she never tells me I can't do it. So I don't like it. When I go do it, she's like, oh, again? And she kind of like plays playfully, but she tells me I don't like it when you do it. But she never says I can't do it. So it's like, when I go fight, when I have an invitation to fight, I don't take it. I'm taking a decision. I know she doesn't like it, but I know it's under my free will. It's like, I know what she feels like, but it's my say. She's not controlling me, right? And that's the trick to communicating, is that you speak your preference, like saying, hey, this friend of yours does not have your highest interest in mind. They're a bad influence. I don't like them. I don't think it's in your highest interest to spend time with them, but, have your own journey. Do what you want. I'm not going to hold it against you. They then can choose to not see that friend out of their own free will. So that's really important for anxiously attached people to understand, is that your partner will never do what you want if you come with a vibration of fear and neediness and control, saying you have to do this or else. That's never going to work, because love is freedom. Love is based on free will. So you have to phrase things in a way where your partner feels like they have the freedom to choose what they want to do out of their own free will. So you say, hey, I prefer this. I desire this. Do what you will. That's where I stand. That's honoring free will. Like, small example, my partner, I eat super healthy. I'm gluten-free. I don't eat any seed oils. I'm all organic. I'm one of those I know it's annoying. It sounds terrible, but I'm one of those people, right? My wife isn't. Through being with me, she's much more like me, and she sees the benefits of it, but she still loves having, a shitty cookie or a bag of candy or a soda every now and then. And initially, when I was like, you can't do that. What the f***? You're eating Red 40? What the f*** is wrong with you? It would never go well. Because again, I was controlling her because I was judging her and I needed her to change for me to feel like, what the f*** is she doing? The minute I just said, hey, I prefer if you weren't eating bags of shitty candy. I don't like it, but do what you want. I'm not going to hold it against you. And she's okay. And then sometimes she's eating candy next to me. I'm like, that's her choice, right? If she chooses not to eat that candy, it's out of her own free will. And now, when we're, at the supermarket and she sees shitty cookies, I don't say anything and she chooses out of her own free will, not this time. It's more powerful because she's choosing it, right? Sometimes she does choose the shitty cookies, but she's choosing it. I can't do that. All I can do is speak my preference without attachment. So the anxiously attached person is literally attached anxiously to an outcome of control. I need to do this. That vibration is coercion, and your partner, it feels like I'm not choosing this out of my own free will. So what you have to speak of and communicate to them is that, but you have to be in the vibration of wholeness, and you don't need it to feel safe, because that's a vibration that's contagious and contaminates your words. Feel whole, get your center locked in, and say, hey, I prefer this. This is what I'd want. It's okay if it doesn't happen. I have to speak my preference, right? Then they can choose out of their own free will. So it's very important here is, I'm laying out the codes here. You've lost your center. You have to control your partner to feel whole. Get your center back. Do what it takes for you to get your center back. I don't care how long it takes. Get your center back. Now in your center, connect with what you actually want, what you have a desire for. Then Speak it without attachment. Hey, I want this. If you don't do it, don't feel like it, it's okay. That's my preference. Do what you will. I'm here. And that way they can choose in their own free will what to do or not to do. All right? That's important here. The main issue I see with people who are anxiously attached is that they place all the blame on the avoidant. Is that I'm this way because my partner's avoidant. They don't love me. They don't give me what I need. Da 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 da. The truth is, it's on you. Right? It's on you as an anxiously attached person. Because if you're in your center, if you don't have to control or coerce your partner into loving you, and you're in your higher self, there's nothing to avoid. When you're in your center, when you're in your power, when you're vibrating love, when there's no attachment, there's nothing to avoid. Because you're whole. And if you're truly whole, if you're in your heart, if you don't need anything, and your partner is still running, then cut it. Then cut it. My partner is probably avoidant secure. Like me, I'm anxiously secure. I'm probably 85% anxious, 50% secure. My partner's probably 85% secure. Sorry, I don't know if I said that right. We're both 85% secure. I have 15 anxious. She has 15 avoidant. Now, when I come to her with that thing of, you have to change this, I have to control you so I feel safe, I'm needy, blah, 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 she'll always be like, what the is this? Right? Every single time I'm in my center, in my power, I speak what I prefer with no attachment, she never runs. She sees me with love and she runs towards me. She sprints towards me and her heart melts. Okay? The most avoidants aren't actually avoiding you, they're avoiding your pain and your addiction to their validation to soothe it. Once you have your center in you, I can guarantee you most avoidants will run towards you. Because they see your love, they see your heart, you're vibrating love. When you vibrate love, when you vibrate freedom, you get love and freedom. When you vibrate anxiety, fear, and need for control, you vibrate an energy that's repulsive. That's the truth. So an anxiously attached person is vibrating fear, vibrating control. That's not sexy, it's not attractive. When you vibrate wholeness and you vibrate love, that's when you pull in. So if you're in your center, if you're in your heart, and your partner is still running, is still saying, what the f is wrong with you? Then they're the bad guy. I get that. But most of the time, I can promise you that that's not the case. Right? You can see the pattern of my partner so present, so loving. The minute I get in that frequency of control and fear, they run. Yeah, they should run. They should run because you're going into a mode where you have to use them as a drug. For women, if you're anxiously attached and you want to have compassion for your partner, I want you to tap into what it feels like when your male partner lustfully needs you sexually. He's not courting you. He's not caressing you. He's not treating you like a flower. He has lust and he's running after you. He's grabbing you. He's like, I need to f you. And the energy, what does that feel like? Right? What does that feel like? That he needs you and has to use you for him to release and feel safe. He needs your sexuality for him to feel whole. What does that feel like? Versus, he's in his center, he's vibrating whole, he's confident, and his energy pulls you towards him. You go sit in his lap, you give him a kiss, that turns into a makeout session gradually, and then you fall into sex. What does that feel like, right? You're choosing sex out of your own free will and not coercion. He's attracting you from wholeness. That's the same thing when you're anxiously attached. When you need him to feel whole, you need his validation. He can't give it to you out of free will. He's forced into it. It's the same thing when you're forced into sex. So sit with that, right? That your lover deserves you, not the version of you that needs them like a drug. Okay? So from a higher perspective, the purpose of anxious attachment, for those who have it, is a lesson they need to stand in their power and give themselves back their center. Because your higher self is you with a full center, complete in this moment. And instead of constantly reaching out for them to put you there and outsourcing your power, you give it to yourself. And when you give yourself what you've been missing, when you fill your center yourself, when you find the practices that keep you centered, you are one with your higher self. your soul has upgraded massively, right? In this dimension, the game is outsourcing our center to feel whole. That's the game. That's karma. That's why we reincarnate, is we constantly need something outside of us to feel whole. The inverted polarity, those in secret societies, the evil people, what's wrong with them is that they need power. They need domination. They need piles of money. They need you humiliated. They need you to do the evil things for them because they require that to feel power. What's power? It's requiring subjugation, requiring domination for you to feel whole. That's the ego's game. That's not love. Love is vibrating wholeness. When you vibrate wholeness, you're in your power. You're one with your soul. But in this dimension, our egos think that we need power, we need domination, we need change, we require change, we have to force change to feel whole. That's inverted love. When we're in love, when our soul is one with ourselves, we're in our center. We're vibrating love. That's the lesson for anxiously attached people to understand and realize, is that your center is your power. You can't outsource it. And what's crazy is the feedback you get, right? When a week goes by, and I'm in my center, I'm locked in, I'm in my practices, my wife is like a graceful, melted lover. She's smiling, she's happy, she's beautiful. It's like she's literally glowing aura just because my center is locked in as a man. Then one day it breaks, and I'm like, you have to do this, da, da, da. And then she's like, who is this? What the f happened? And I can see the aura just leave her. And that's real. And that's something I have to face myself. And it's the truth for all people who have anxious attachment. Right? But to add some nuance, right? The avoidant will still have work to do, but it's very different when it's not out of your own fear, right? Because if you're terrified and you need them to change, you need the validation, you're running after them, it's very difficult for them to see that they have work to do because you're running after them, you're throwing all this fear at them. How could they possibly see it's me, right? But, my partner's not perfect. There's things you have to work on. But when I'm whole, when I'm centered, and, for example, my wife is better at many things than me. I'm better at many things than her, romantically. One thing I'd say I'm good at is that if I say a comment that throws her off, I'm quick to say, oh shit, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. She's not. She says something that's like very rarely, that's like a bullet. I'm like, whoa, ouch. And then she's so scared of hurting me, she gets defensive and is like, oh, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean it that way, I didn't intend that way. And one time my center, I was locked in, in my presence, I said, hey, when I say a comment that hurts you, what would it feel like if I got defensive and didn't take accountability constantly? How would that feel? She's like, not good at all, okay? Most of the time when you say something that stings, you are very slow to come to me and own it and apologize. And that's not fair. I love you, and I'd love to see that change because I want you to feel like what it's like when I do that. I was locked in my center, and she was like, oh, okay, I hear you. And then she took a little space to process it, and she wasn't in an amazing mood for an hour or two. But then, ever since I said that, and she says a comment that's a little ouchy, and I say ouch, she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Like, I can understand how that's different. I'll work on not saying that. Because I spoke truth of what she had to grow from my center, right? Imagine if she said something that was off, and I was like, what the how dare you? How can you say that? What the hell? And then like, what did you mean that? Like, and you start getting needy and you push them away, versus you're in your center and say, hey, I'd love it if you were a little more aware of what you said, like I am. And you give them space to process that, right? The avoidant just needs space to process the truth. But when you're anxiously attached and you go into fear, they don't have that space to process, and they're just dealing with your fear. So to let the avoidant do their inner work, you have to speak the truth in your center and give them the space they need to process it. That's the truth. We all move differently, right? Anxiously attached people move fast. You tell us something, and we're like, boom, got it, right? Avoidance actually change, but they need space to change. We all need space, but they actually really need that inner process to tend to themselves, to move, but they have to have that without your fear and your terror, right? So that's a big important thing here, is to tell the avoidant truth, but you have your center inside you, and you give them space to process it, right? It's a very different experience. Okay. Lastly, to add some more nuance, anxious attachment is very different for men and women, right? When the man's anxiously attached, it really kind of kills polarity. The man, if I'm not fear of like, I'm going to lose you, you have to change, I get insecure and needy, and I'm like, do you love me? It kills the polarity. It kills it, and polarity is what keeps the sexual attraction alive. And the deeper the polarity, the more the attraction is bubbling. So when a man's stuck in anxious attachment, it inverts polarity. So it's a different experience. When the female is anxiously attached, it doesn't kill the polarity as much because the woman needing the man and needing his protection is part of polarity. But it gets overboard when she is constantly being anxious. But the trick is for men, it's a whole different game, because the woman is a reflection of what you give her. She amplifies whatever you give her. If you're giving the woman fear constantly, she amplifies fear back. She won't feel safe. And a female's safety is the center of any relationship. That her safety is what creates the juice of the love and the sex in the relationship. And if you're constantly pushing fear on her, pushing your wounds on her, she's going to explode that fear, and it's not going to go well. So the man in the center is the most important. That's the most important. He should be in the center, and she should be able to dance around him, express herself how she feels. The woman is everything, the man is nothing. The woman should feel everything, expand everything, process everything. The man has to ground her and be nothing. By being nothing, I mean he literally is stillness. Cool water. He's still. He grounds her emotions. But if, when it flips, the man is, anxious and needy, and she's like there grounding him, it flips. That's not the way things should be. So women have a little more freedom in anxious attachment, but to add more nuance here is that, again, if you're truly in your center as a woman, you have your power in you, you have your practices that regulate you, and he's still not seeing you, he's still not touching your heart, he's still not doing the small things, then you're always going to feel unsafe. So if you're a woman, the test for seeing if a man's truly safe is that if you're in your center, if your nervous system is regulated, if you're in your heart, and he is still avoiding you, he's still not seeing you, he's still not loving you, you'll never feel safe. Ever. But if you're constantly in fear and chasing him, running after him, calling him nonstop, then that's your problem. Then you're actually giving him the frequency of fear, and when you're emanating fear, you attract more fear, you attract more vibrations that enhance that. So there's nuance there. So to summarize everything, those with anxious attachment, your job is to have your center in you. Your partner who loves you wants to see you in your power. They don't want to see you collapse into needing them to change and being in fear and control, because that's not love. So stay in your center. Get familiar with what you actually prefer, but speak it as a preference, not a desire for control. Say, I prefer this. I want this. Do what you will. And give them space to process it. Deliver truth without needing them to accept it so much. Because the anxiously attached person will speak truth, but then quickly they're like, oh, you're upset, you're angry? What the f-? And then they collapse. Speak your truth, give them space to process, stay in your center. So the requirement here for the anxiously attached person is to figure out what gets them in their center, right? What's their center? How do you get centered? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? Is it ice bath, sauna? Is it working out? Or is it all the above? For me, it's all the above. That's important, because you being in your center as the anxiously attached person is what's going to make the avoidant have nothing to avoid. So keep your center locked in. You got it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here, and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.